What's good, everybody? I just wanted to pop on here and share a brief word about pride and some of the characteristics that the Father allowed me to see within myself to be able to overcome as He's been building me in my walk with Him. So for me, I grew up in Detroit, and we didn't necessarily have everything that we would have liked to have had, as children, but we definitely had what we needed. And, what happens is that when you don't have like all the things that you see the other children have, you can develop what is called a poverty mindset. So, whenever we did get money or, something like that, what we would do is we'd be like, hey, we about to ball out because we don't know when we're going to have it again. So that's kind of the mindset that we grew up with. And, carrying that mindset into my adult years, when I began to work and, provide things for myself, what happened was, I had to have the latest everything. I had to have, nice shoes. I had to have jewelry. I had to have a crispy lineup. I had to have a certain style or swag about myself. I get all up in the mirror. I'm looking at myself. I'm like, man, yeah, look at that, doing all of this crazy stuff. And it developed a form of vain or even arrogant pride. And it was funny because I might have looked like $1 million, but for real, I ain't have it. I ain't have it until I started doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. But, as I began to wake up to myself, what happened is the Father stripped me. Like as I was following the Holy Spirit in this journey, I was stripped to nothing. Like I gave away anything that I had that was of value. We gave away, me and my wife, we gave away furniture. We gave away clothes. We just walked away from everything and we started off from nothing. With that, as I began to, study and learn and die to the worldly things that we had, what happened was I became self-righteous. I started keeping like the biblical laws, the statutes and the commandments. And, I gave away anything that had like pagan images or things like that on it. I didn't celebrate anything but holy days. I self-righteously prided myself in that. So essentially what happened is I went from a high level of arrogant, vain pride, and then I was stripped, and then the self-righteous pride increased. And the Father allowed me to walk in both sides of this for an appointed season. And then as I was on this side of it, what happened is the Holy Spirit led me to go back to listen to a certain style of music or to watch a certain TV show. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. But, after many witnesses, I was obedient. And what happened is instead of being up here on this self-righteous high horse, it produced balance. And, this is where I find myself trying to labor to remain. The book says just weights and balances are what He delights in. And it's funny because I looked at how He allowed me to be able to see myself and overcome, and how He did it on two different sides. So, the word is a double-edged sword, and it cuts going in and it cuts going out. And you have to be able to learn both knowledge of good and evil. And I believe that, that's an example of a bit of what my journey was. When it comes to self-righteous pride, what I learned is that the book says that knowledge can puff you up. So look at knowledge as kind of like a back door. This is why Solomon finished the way that he finished. He didn't finish good because he was granted knowledge and wisdom. And when you have studied a thing for so long, it can definitely, make you self-righteous with regards to those things that you have studied. If you look at the story of Job, Job didn't start off prideful. He started off righteous, and he was afflicted with so many different things and so many different tribulations that he began to defend himself against his wife, against his friends. And the thing is that the Father wanted to defend him. So what happened with Job is that over the course of tribulation and affliction, Satan was able to slip in the back door. And then at the end of the book of Job, in Job 41, he said, the Father came and told Job, Leviathan is the king of pride. And he was speaking of a form of self-righteous pride when he was referring to Job in that manner. Job was blessed. He didn't need for anything. So he was given everything. And that's also another form of self-righteous. That could also trigger another form of self-righteous pride. So I think, just looking back, one of the letters in the middle of pride is I. I did this. I did that. I. And when we begin to do that, we begin to take glory away from the Father. I didn't do anything. I don't deserve anything, because it's not my glory. It's his glory through me. He did it. I didn't do anything. I began to seek him, and he began to lead me. So, I guess the word is to, encourage someone. When somebody gives you correction, somebody comes to you with a word, the book says to be slow to speak, quick to hear, and slow to anger. If somebody gives you a word that convicts you and you have a fast response, that's how you know that there could be a heart issue, because we're supposed to meditate. Take it back to the Father. Father, is this something that I really need to look at within me? Because this person just said this about me and I'm not able to see it, but I'm going to lift it up to you and see if you send it back down to me. But if you got a quick response, that's what you want to look at. We labor to live life according to the word. I remember when I began to learn the characteristics of pride about 6 years ago when I was in a different ministry. I began to study the Bible. And as you begin to grow in your studies, you begin to, discern and see things that may or may not add up. And I went to the elder about a particular topic, and we had just started to learn about how the characteristics of pride work literally a few days prior to this conversation. And the pastor was like, when somebody's operating in pride, because they always respond like this. He said, well, we've been doing this thing here for about 30 years. So literally 2 days after we learn about some of the characteristics, this is the exact same thing that the elder says to me. And I'm like, am I being punked right now? This is literally exactly what happened. So, my encouragement is to genuinely look at yourself. Don't be so quick to speak when somebody gives you a word and it's given in love. The key is, those who are loving you by the fruit that they're doing it in. And love is joy, love is peace, love is temperance, humility. All of these things are what equate to love. So if somebody comes to you and they approach you in good fruit, then you as a follower of Christ are obligated to do things according to the word. So be slow to speak. Hear what it is they say, slow to speak, quick to hear, and you don't have to respond slow. You don't have to respond immediately, slow to anger. Lift it up to the Father in prayer. Take it to him and say, Father, is this something that I need to look at within myself? And he will send it back down to you to let you know. I pray that this is a word that helps somebody in their journey. Peace and blessings.